that for me. Yep, you're good to go.
Awesome. Were you able, you got your workbook, right? Here, yeah,
Yep, I got it.
awesome. Okay, we're live.
You're live.
Awesome. Hi, everybody at home, everybody here in the office. Those of you at home, you're not enjoying the Panera that everybody else is, so you'll have to come out next week and get your Panera. Certainly our last session where we're going to do the case study, you're going to want to most likely be here in the room. Although we do have the ability to put little rooms, I think, Matt, right?
Yep.
For you, if you do stay at home for the case study. That's where we're going to have Emilio Espinoza come in and do a couple Harvard case studies for us. And we're going to give away some books and prizes for people for participating to finalize it. And we'll have a pizza lunch after as well for those of you that are here in the office. And it'll be a nice wrap up. So thank you everybody for coming back this week. It's always nice to have some people stay with the course, because usually after the first one, some people they drop out for whatever reason. So the commitment for you to be here is fantastic. How I'm going to structure today, you've been given a workbook by Matt, I believe, online. So at home and here at the office, you've got a hard copy. We're going to deviate from some of my own material to the material in the book, my own material. So we're going to be kind of weaving this little obstacle course of going through working with buyers. Today, hot off the press, as I mentioned to Liam this morning, I've been working a long time on a TRESA guide for the brokerage. And so now we've got a finished product. It'll most likely go through all three offices through the design center. So I had the design to print up a book here today, and it's really condensing the whole, basically TRESA, people call it Stressa, right? So the Stressa into a guidebook. It's only as good though as how you're going to read it. And I've got snapshots of the different forms. I've got the clauses. Here's the reality for anybody that's stressed about Stressa. Just know that 95% of what Stressa is really was what Reva is, quite frankly, right? There's some nuances now, no more customers. There's an SRP. And in our business today, for today's situation as a buyer, we'll have potentially buyer SRPs that identify themselves like that when we have our own listings, right? We'll never be, as a realtor working with a buyer, SRP, because they've declared that they don't want to be represented by a realtor. And there should be no reason why you should be doing that, because you can't give your knowledge, skill, or judgment to an SRP. But a buyer SRP, you're going to eventually encounter one when you have a listing. So today we're going to go deep dive a bit into the buyer situation. As I said last week, buyers are usually the first clients we like to work with in the industry, because it's a little less overwhelming for you in paperwork and whatnot. So, and my career was exactly the same way. Probably the first 10 deals I did, 9 of them were for buyers and 1 was for a listing. It's just, there was a more comfort factor for us and for myself. So we're going to go into the first section, which will describe some studies. I love studies. I'm a bit of an academic, as you know. I shared with you last week. I did my master's degree in business and leadership, and my thesis was in real estate performance predictors. Actually, I probably have a digital copy of that I could give Matt to send if anybody ever wants to read it. There is a little bit of scientific mumbo jumbo there, so if you don't understand, just go over that. But I really kind of looked at what drives performance for realtors. So in my old program, and not the one here, I have some studies that I always cite to get us in the mindset of where do buyers come from, how do buyers engage with this, the referral process, all that type of thing. So we're going to start with that. Matt, if you can pull up the first, yeah, there you go. So these are the, you can write them in the notes. You've probably got some sections in your workbook that they've given you for notes, but this is where the 3 big influences are today in Canadian real estate. And so if you look at it, can I write on this still?
Hit your pen.
Perfect, now I can write.
Yep.
So in Canada, if you look at it, we have 3 buckets of buyers, big buyers segments, right? Demographics is what we call it. And what we have is immigration, longevity, or what we'll call lifespan, people are living longer, and what we call the echo boom generation. So I'll kind of go into each one of them. And why I kind of present this to you in this class is that, you're going to be working with your sphere of influence. You're going to be working with people that know you, like you, and trust you, as we talked about last week. But you're also going to maybe want to add a pillar or two of specialization in a demographic. And these are three demographics that you could choose from. Not to say you should do all three, right? But maybe one of them, really appeals to you as far as how and why you want to work with that segment. Maybe you have been through the immigration process coming to Canada, or somebody in your family that's come from another country and immigrated, and so you've experienced either personally or vicariously through somebody else that process. Well, if that's the case, wouldn't it be awesome for you to maybe really research what that looks like and have a bit of a specialization? Now, you can't put that as a specialization yet. Rico is through the TRESA stuff. We're working towards getting specialized designation for things like helping, immigrants coming to the country, helping retirees, the baby boom generation. That's in the future, but why not start now? Why not look at something that really, you have a personal appeal to? And in Canada, this is a statistic from StatsCan. In 6 short years, believe it or not, in Canada, 54% of the Canadian population will be foreign born. And isn't that an interesting statistic? So more than, pardon me?
That's great.
It's crazy. More than 54% of Canadians. So to me, I see, now, I've shared with you, I think, my ancestry in this country. My mother's family came to Canada in 1604 from France, my mom's family. We're the first actual, I would say, immigrants to Canada, our ancestors. They're Acadian French Canadians. We're called Acadians, right?
The real book.
We're not Quebecois. No, I'm not trying to insult you people from Quebec. We're called Acadians. If you ever want to look up this little culture, it's an amazing culture. The Acadiens, the very first French. So I'm not going to really be, on my mother's side, appealing, or if I was in the business, going towards the immigration as a silo. Because on the second side, my last name is an Irish name, and my father's ancestors came to Canada in 1860. 1860, yeah, in 1860, after the famine in Ireland, right? And so I have really personally no affinity. I wouldn't know how to specialize in that because I don't know the system. But if you do, personally or through others, you really should invest in doing that, because you can be very helpful. And once you set yourself up as a kind of quote unquote expert, that's where the referrals are going to come from. That's where people are going to reach out to you for information. And now I do know realtors that specialize in this field. And what they'll do is they'll partner with a lawyer, they'll partner with an accountant and an immigration specialist, and they'll work together in helping people get into Canada and purchase real estate. And I'm thinking of one realtor, will not name her name, but she's a very productive realtor, very successful. She actually goes to countries that there's a high immigration rate to Canada and does presentations and seminars in those countries. So she connects with the local municipalities, governments in these countries. They do seminars, presentations. It's a great thing. Now, this is something for you to work on, right? To evolve to. The next one is the longevity lifespan. So in Canada now, we're up to 81 years. This is the average. Sorry, guys, we die younger than 81. So the numbers, because the ladies live longer than us, all right? So the ladies live about 84 to 85. Us guys, we're about 77, 78 years is what we do. But so the average is 81. So in Canada, this is an opportunity to work in. Now, I personally have a little bit of an affinity for that because I helped my parents back in 2017 downsize. My parents had the 3,000 square foot house. They raised, my mother's a saint for sure. She raised 3 boys that all played hockey and baseball and got into no good. I'm joking. My brothers did, but I didn't. I'm an angel. Okay. So I went through that process. And when we downsized my parents had collected everything. That generation, I'm not saying they're hoarders, but that generation, they have a hard time letting go of things. So when I went back there and to help my mom and dad, it was like for me going into a time machine personally, because my mom had saved my first, tooth. My mom had saved my trophies from hockey and baseball and my picture. It was amazing that report cards. she had for me, you know, especially the bad ones. Wasn't always a good student, right? But this was something for my parents, and thankfully, you know, being in the business, I was able to help them through the real estate process, which was nerve-wracking for them. But just think of all those memories that you have to unlock for them to be able to move forward. You know, taking the pictures of all of our family stuff was off the walls was very hard, because if those pictures were still there, it ties them to the house. Why would they want to sell that house? And my parents had it for over 30 something years, right? So they raised the three of us, me and my two brothers. So, you know, learning about this, there are some special designation courses that are out there available for working with senior citizens, right? So I remember taking a certification back in 1998 called the Real Estate Planner designation, which was actually, you know, tailored for the senior market. But in here, you know, what are you looking for? Well, you're looking for people that are probably downsizing, you know, to maybe a bungalow or a condo. Some of them, they hold on so long that their next step, though, is maybe an assisted living, right? They need some caregiver. They need to be in an environment where there's maybe medical health, be it a nurse or whatnot, available to them. So focusing on this group. Now, this group here is the most financially affluent group in Canada as well. So if that's encouraging for you or an incentive for you to focus on them, great. This group here will be providing the greatest wealth transfer in history to their children, like myself, and to their grandchildren. These are their grandchildren, the Echo Boom. Let me delete this top up there. This is we call these people also the baby boom generation, right? Has everybody heard of the baby boom? Baby boom generation? Why it's the baby boom generation is they're the children of the soldiers who returned home from the Second World War. And so from 1946 to about 1967, 68, 69, they call this thing the baby boom generation. I was born in 1970. I think I'm the first year of Generation X, I think is what they call us. Not to put labels on anybody, because it's, you know, we don't want to stereotype people, but this baby boom generation, you think of 1946 to 1969, they've accomplished a lot. I mean, the whole economic system of the capitalism really grew and exploded through this baby boom generation. And they were very, especially because of their parents' work, because their parents grew up during the Great Depression, right? So the Great Depression, there wasn't a lot of things available. So they learned how to save things. That's why talking about, you know, they're not hoarders, but it's hard for them to let things go. So you're going to want to partner with, you know, decluttering companies, or you're going to want to partner with maybe even psychologists to help them through that process. Again, good idea to specialize that. So the baby boomers had the children, which is me, my generation, and then we give what's called the Echo Boom generation. So I have one child in the Echo Boom, and my daughter's outside of the Echo Boom. I think they call her a millennial. But here's what this group looks like. This group here is between 18 and 31 years old. There's 9.2 million of them in Canada. Canada's population is hovering around close to around 40 million, I would say, give or take, because our immigration right now is around 900,000 people annualized, right, is what we're doing. The average first-time buyer, according to CMHC, is 31 years. So it's really, you know, this Echo Boom generation is this first-time buyer generation. Approximately half of them still live with their parents. Yeah, guilty. My son and daughter still live. Well, my daughter's only 16, so she gets to stay there, but my son is living at home. And 42% of them that are couples do not have children. And there may not be any interest in having children probably till they're in their 30s, mid-30s. So things are being delayed for them. So this generation and the baby boom generation share similar interests in real estate. Does anybody know what the number one interest or type of product in real estate that those generations are competing for right now? Condos, exactly. So mom and dads, the grandparents, they want the downsized condo unless they're going to assisted living. And this is where they're mostly starting with their real estate purchasing, right? So again, all I'm saying is if you have an affinity for something like this, this is something where you can build around your profession. So you can do seminars on first-time buyers. You can do a seminar on downsizing your home. You can do a seminar buying real estate as a new immigrant to Canada, right? So these things are great. We have this room here set up like that, where we do presentations for these things. Partner with the finance people, partner with lawyers, partner with accountants. On the immigration side, partner with immigration specialists. So it's just something for you to think about where you can source other information and source other sources of business. I mean, myself, I did a lot of the sports stuff, right? It was hockey and baseball. So think of this as another alternative. And maybe you enjoy sports yourself, or maybe you're you love vacations. You're a vacationer. So plug into something where you are happy and you're most natural and start to work it. Next slide, if you could, Matt. Okay, this is a survey that was done by NAR in conjunction with, I think it was Princeton, actually. And so they did a sales study, and the sales study, I believe, had over 20,000 participants. So it's very statistically valid. And they wanted to talk about and find out about real estate, not just real estate people, but salespeople. We are salespeople, believe it or not, at the very lowest level of what we do. So they wanted to find out, and the question was, first question, how often do salespeople follow up? Well, 48% of salespeople never follow up. Never follow up. So I'm going to put this number here. This is a little low, but it keeps the math simple for both of us, all of us, myself more included. 70,000 realtors on the Toronto Regional Real Estate Board. It's a little more than that, as I said. But let's go with this number. So, and I'm going to round that up to 50 just to keep the math simple. So 35,000 and 35,000. 35,000 don't even follow up with a lead. Somebody's reached out to you as a salesperson for an inquiry. Maybe it's been on realtor.ca, or maybe you put a flyer out there, or your sign, or you did an open house and you gave a business card and they followed up with you. Well, believe it or not, according to this massive study, 48%, 50% of salespeople never even respond back. So when we're thinking in our mind that we actually are competing with 70,000 people, you truly aren't actually. You're down to 35, 36, 37,000 people you're truly competing with. Because if you're not going to follow up, you have no opportunity to build a relationship with them, right? 25% make 2 contacts and stop. 12% make 3 contacts and stop, which means that 85% of all salespeople, 85% make 3 or less contacts and stop. So now you're down to 15% here, right? You're down to just about 10,000 thereabouts people you're competing with. So 10,000 people on TREB is who your real competition is. Everybody's heard of the term, or maybe not, the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule. You ever heard that? 80% of people do 20% of the work, which means the flip side, 20% do 80%. So 20% do 80% of the business, if you look at it that way. Well, this says it's actually a little different. So it's like 90-10. 10% do 90%. So, I'm impressing upon you this statistic and this research to have you not to get discouraged about these big numbers that you always hear about. The person you're competing with the most is actually yourself. This is going to help you understand that get up out of bed and compete with yourself, and you're 10,000 other people, not 70,000 other people. Hopefully that's helpful. Next, and this is a second question on that. When do people, same survey, when do people buy, sell, or refer? So 2% will be on the first contact, 3 on the second, 5 on the third, 10 on the fourth. 80% of all buying, all selling and referring happens, the magic happens between the 5th and 12th contact. 80% of that. So if we go back to the last slide, it was 85% stopped at 3 contacts. Stopped at 3 contacts, which is right here. So they're only competing for 5% of the business, then they're out. What really happens is here. Okay. 80%, first and fifth. Think of yourself. Are you buying on impulse on your first contact with somebody or second? You might, right? But I would wager a bet that if it's an impulse buy, it's been something you've been thinking about a lot. Maybe it's a pair of shoes or a handbag, or it's the vacation. But you haven't just walked in, oh, I'm buying this $10,000 watch. You've been thinking about it for a while, right? It's not something that you just immediately did on impulse. Yes, there are people that do that. I'm not denying that. But the most of us basically research our things. I do them online anyways, right? So you got 80% between the 5th and 12th contact. Next slide, Matt. What stops repeat and referral business? People do die, unfortunately. This is a guarantee in life, you know? They say what? Death and taxes are the only things guaranteed to us. They move away. They buy from a friend. A lot of people coming into the real estate business, in and out of the real estate business, in and out of the real estate business. And so, you know, you've had this client in your relationship database. They've now got a relative or a good friend that's got a business, and maybe you lost your business to that person. They buy from a competitor. They just, you know, went to somebody else. They went into an open house and they loved it, and they impulsed, worked with that person. Here's something that we have to understand. Not everybody buys on price. And I put in brackets there, discounter. What does that mean? Well, we have a value proposition. We create value. We're not a commodity. Remember I talked about the gold analogy last week? Gold has value because it's rare, and gold has value and it's rare because you have to expend a lot of energy to go through a lot of rock to get it. Well, not everybody is just motivated by price. And that shows in that massive survey, that's the case. What that tells me is that people are looking for value. For value. They're not looking, majority of them, for your price, for your kickbacks. Does that happen? Absolutely. When I go through my listing presentation, I'm going to show you what it looks like, what a healthy business looks like, what a vulnerable business looks like, and what a terminal looking business looks like. If you're going to be giving away your fee constantly to people, you're going to have a vulnerable or a terminal looking business in the long run. And also, these are the types of referral people you're going to get, that all they care about is getting a discount from you. The last one here, and I talked about it a little bit last week, was the perceived indifference. Remember I talked about when you get your fee and then disappear for 4 or 5 or 6 months, right? The client thinks in their mind, oh, Mike didn't care. All he cared about was getting paid. I haven't seen him for 4 or 5 months. So it's this perceived indifference. This is the thing that stops you from getting referrals and repeat business. You walk away from them. Here's a high-level study from Princeton and NAR that says, don't do that. Stay in touch. Keep on following up with people, okay? Next slide, Matt. This is another survey, this one specifically from NAR. Just in case people don't know who NAR is, it's the National Association of Realtors, which is the American equivalent to what we have in Canada called the Canadian Real Estate Association. This, I believe, there's 1.5 million members of NAR. It's a huge organization. So they did 15,000 home buyer survey after their purchase, right? So they surveyed 15,000 buyers. 94% were very satisfied with their realtor service. And we talked a little bit about that last week when we went through the assessment tool that I created, right? Remember we talked about the short term, then medium long term was short term was question 9 and medium long term was question 10. And I said to you, in the short term, you guys are rock stars. You guys are hitting it out of the park. And here's a survey that actually proves that. They're very satisfied of your service because you're dialed in with them. However, and this is only after 2 years, 36% of them couldn't remember the name of their realtor. They purchased the most significant asset, most likely, of their life, right? My biggest purchase is my home. 36%, over a third of them couldn't even remember the realtor's name after 2 years. Holy moly. What a shock, right? 88%, by the way, said they would use or refer the realtor again. So what do you surmise from these two major surveys? Right here. Stay in touch. Can you see in the bottom? Stay in touch with systems that regulate this in your business. With buyers. Buyers take a long time to purchase, especially in this marketplace now. Is anybody experiencing that? Where it's not the buyers that are, throwing it into multiple offers every day. They're a lot more cautious today, right? Because they can be, because the market has trended down 35 to 45% in sales, right? The average sales. So for you, you got to stay in touch with these people, constantly stay in touch and be on top of things with them. Does that make sense? Anybody have any questions on that? Wow. I'm not good, eh? You're not that good. Okay. What are we going to do now, Matt? We're going to go to the main questions, main page. Actually, no, you pull it up. I'm going to go through this little small stuff here just very quickly. So Liam and I were talking last week about the $1 Million Dialogue. What's that again?
If I could, would you?
Right. And you were mentioning you tried it.
Just low stakes with but
low stakes, meaning he's practicing in not a high stakes environment. He's not going all in with his house, betting on he's going to knock it out of the park. But that's the Floyd Wickman dialogue. If I could, would you? Matt has just this morning sent to everybody the dialogues for Floyd and the videos for Floyd. These things cost me a lot of money a long time ago. I really, really recommend every one of you watch this stuff. This stuff is the gold of real estate. And one of the sessions you'll hear, it's the 10 Floyd Wickman simple dialogues, basically, right? So I just wrote them down on the board here just to, engage your mind a little bit. And a lot of them are just 2 words, right? No problem, and stay on track. To be like, hey, Liam, I'm really not thinking of signing this buyer representation agreement with you tonight. No problem, Liam. Let's just go through the presentation anyways, right? Why fight about that? It's the no problem. Hey, Mike or Matt. I go to Matt to list his house. He says, Mike, I'm not signing any paperwork tonight. Not happening. No problem, Matt. But you know what? I put together a nice presentation for you. Let's go through that presentation. Is that okay? So it's no problem. The I would. This is where a client's going to ask you a question. So maybe it's on the buyer side. So it's like, Mike, should I include the appliances in the offer? All together now. I would. Mike, should I put all the electrical light fixtures into the offer? What are you going to say?
I would.
I would. Right. Now listing. Mike, should I stage my house?
I would.
I would. Simple. Simple. Transition out of it. Should I? Now it's both sides. On the seller side, should I include the appliances in the listing? Right. So it inverts, right? So let's pretend. Liam, let's pretend I list your house tonight. What are your thoughts on that? So it's imaginary, let's pretend, right? We got to take away the emotion and the fear, right? And I'm going to talk about that in a moment. But be honest. And this one's a tricky one, right? Because if you're going to hit somebody with be honest, and you're hitting them with it that I don't trust you. Be honest with me now, Liam. Like that's not going to work. It's got to be a joke kind of. Hey, be honest. What do you think of me? Be honest, Liam. Do you think I'm the guy for you? Stuff like that, right? Any questions? I've done it to you already 3 times today. Do you have any questions? No, great. Move on. Is that a yes? So when people are starting to throw back some objections to you, right? Should I keep the drape? Okay, great. I would. Is that a yes then? That's a move forward closing on a contract. The you sure? The fair enough? And the isn't it, doesn't it, aren't they? Now, I didn't go into those ones. They're pretty cool. You're going to have to listen to Floyd's presentation to find those ones out, the answers to that. He actually goes through examples for each one of those to use in a real specific situation on the street as a realtor, okay? His stuff is priceless. Over here, before we go in, did I talk about farmer and hunter last week at all? No, I didn't. Okay, good. So I didn't think I had. So farmer and hunter are the two kind of mindsets that we are looking at for the number one job of us as a realtor. What's the number one job of us again as a realtor? Correct. Okay, the ladies are winning, guys, in answers. Come on. Generate leads. That's our job. Because every day we wake up unemployed. He beat you. We wake up unemployed in the business of real estate, right? So our job, therefore, is to generate leads. There's two more things that are very important. What's the other one? Book an appointment, and then convert to contract, right? Those are the three big things. So when you're generating leads, you have really two big ones and then the hybrid. So the farmer generating leads, this works for buyers, this works for sellers. The farmer is the person that's planting seeds. So think of any farm, they're growing corn, they're growing wheat, they're growing beans. They actually have to care for the soil, make sure the soil has all the nutrients. You have to go plant the seeds, and they have to actually do something that's really amazing that we all forget about. They got to nurture and tend all the weeds out of that garden, that farm, right, where they're planting. We always forget about that. The weeds, the bad stuff, the crows that are coming to eat stuff, right? So they have to tend that before that crop comes to fruition, before they harvest it. In our situation, the weeds, what are some weeds that you could have while you're farming for buyers and sellers? This is before you've got the contract, by the way.
Some seminars.
Pardon me?
Some seminars.
You could do seminars as part of farming for sure, right? But I'm talking about weeds that can destroy your system.
Distractions that come up during the day,
Distractions that come up during the day.
laundry needs done, none needs to get done.
Yeah, right. How about the external environment? Interest rates, could those be things that are like weeds, preventing people from making decisions? Could the weather, could their economic status? These types of things you want to be present for as the farmer, because it's long term. You know, we talked about why do people buy, sell, refer or not? Well, one of them is buy from a competitor or buy from a friend. If there's people coming into their lives, you want to know about it. You want to be the source and voice of information for them. Remember, as the realtor, farming is a long process. It's a process I invested a lot in, and it paid massive dividends later on in my career. The other one, the other big one, is the hunter. The hunter is the guy that's going out there immediately trying to convert. So that's the realtor that's on the phone every day, making outbound calls, or every day is knocking on doors, or every day is handing out a flyer. They're every day trying to get a signed contract. That's the hunter. That was not me. And there are very successful ones that do that, and God love them for doing that. However, some of the tactics they use, if you use them in moderation, in a farmer type of situation, and what I call the hybrid, it works amazingly. So I was a hybrid realtor with more focus on the farming side. My hunting side was me every weekend doing open houses. That was my hunting. Because people walking through an open house, yes, there's people that are just kicking tires. Yes, there's people that are, being nosy neighbors type of things. But there are genuine interested buyers that are coming through there at an open house. And so for you, where are you going to source your buyers? As I said last week, open houses are a great opportunity. I watched again yesterday in our office, 4 or 5 emails go out for realtors that need open houses done for some of our realtors. And they get snapped up like that. Remember I told you like how quick that is? It's like literally a minute or two later, sorry, don't need an agent. But this is the hunter side for the buyers doing the open houses. Emotional versus economic. I don't believe I touched on that last week, did I? No, okay. So I did talk a little about fear, right? What is the acronym I used for fear again? false evidence appearing real. It's basically a ghost. And I twisted that and said, think of it, face everything and rise. Remember I said that to you? Don't let fear hold you down. Face everything and rise and confront it. So in the business of real estate, and this is really for buyers, but sellers too, okay? But really let's call it for the buyers. Buyers are buying on emotion more than they're buying on economics. Would you agree with that? Okay. So if we know that they're buying here more than they're buying here, we have to be really good. Really good here, okay? You got to confront the fears that they're going to have. And everyone know what FOMO means, right? No, fear of missing out. Because there's two fears. Right now, the fear we have today for buyers is not FOMO. It's interest. Today's fear, well, let's put some down. I was going to do that. Thanks for jumping in. So people are afraid of interest rates. As buyers, right? That's handicapping their decision. What are some other things right now that are preventing them from making a decision? Pardon me? The overall economy? Sure. How about job stability? Is that something?
Yes.
There's lots of them. Think about these things because you have to be able to identify the specific client and diagnose what their fear is today. Okay? Anybody got any others that you can think of? No? Okay.
Recession. Right?
No, that's the economy, right? So we're afraid of the recession. And we'll call that inflation too for the economy. There's all kinds of concerns that they have that are wrapped up in the economy. They could be afraid of global events, right? Throw that one in there. The world's a very dangerous place right now. A friend of mine calls it the world's gone bonkers right now, and I wouldn't disagree. It's very, very chaotic. So that's what we're in right now. For buyers today, they're in this fear mode. We all agree, right? If you go back a couple of years ago, 2021, the market took off. A different kind of emotion came in that motivated the buyers. And it was really this one, fear of missing out. That means that they don't even think about anything. They just throw numbers around because if they don't, next week it's going to be another 5% more to buy this house, another 10%. And so the fear of missing out. We're not there in this marketplace, but here's my prediction.
End of this year.
I don't know when it's going to be, if it's the end of this year, but FOMO will come back again.
It's already started, I think.
There's a little bit of it.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of, let's go back to the farmer. So the farmer plants the seeds and then it starts to sprout a little bit. In economics, economists call it green shoots. We're seeing a little bit of green shoots that we might come back to this FOMO. What are you going to do with FOMO? How are you going to manage that with your buyers? So in here too, let me address another big fear. I think it's actually the biggest one, along with interest rates. It's this thing here. Price drop. I think that's the biggest fear buyers have right now. They have a perceived idea that the price is going to continue to drop of the value in real estate. I showed you last week, because the day that we did the first session was the Market Watch came out. And I showed you from the last 4 months, the end of December 2023, the market grew by 6.5% up. The stat shows year over year, it's like 0.9, but it's actually 6.5%. So this is already starting to happen. Now, here's a good way to deal with a buyer that's really stuck in this fear that there's going to be a massive price drop. Because sales are still down in the aggregate, if they think the price is going to drop by 5% and they like a house, well, why don't they put an offer in that's 7% below the list price? or the 5% that they imagine it's going to be at. So why don't you try to get ahead of the offer or the marketplace? Am I saying you're going to guarantee that you're going to get something like that? No. But if you're worried the price is going to drop 5%, that's what's holding you back. That's your fear. And find a seller that's willing to sell their property for 5% less than what it's worth. You think there's sellers out there like that for buyers? Absolutely there are. Lots of opportunities. I do believe, though, that we're imminently close to that shift where these types of fears are going to not be present on the table as much as they are right now. In fact, I was saying it back in November. If you ever watched me on some of the Signature Lives, I said, to me, this is one of the best windows of opportunities to buy real estate as a buyer, bar none. Go out there and offer 5 or 10% below, because the sellers at that point were capitulating. They were giving up. And there's still sellers out there that are capitulating. Get out there and find those sellers for your buyer to eliminate these fears. Because once we kick into FOMO, that's a whole different ballgame. That is what I would call the frenzy. Actually, we call it the feeding frenzy. If I was to go to the Isle of Guadalupe in Mexico, or the Farallon Islands off of California, San Francisco, or to Shark Alley off the coast of South Africa, and drop a whole bunch of blood in the water, how many great white sharks are going to come out? A lot. I love great white sharks. And one of my bucket list items is to go in a cage diving with great white sharks. I was going to do it on my 50th birthday, but COVID happened on my 50th. I couldn't travel to do it, but that's going to happen. In a FOMO situation, think of the sharks in a feeding frenzy for that one piece of fish that they're putting out there. And one piece of fish is the house, and you got 10 or 15 buyers feeding for it. We're not there yet, but there's this one thing that tells me that we will get there, and I don't know when it's going to be, and it's inventory. Yes, right now, Treb's showing we have an abundance of inventory. I get that. But if we're scaling this country up with 600 to 900,000 people a year, how are we going to house these people? It's a simple demand and supply curve in economics 101. Okay? We always do price supply. Where's the supply going to come from? Are we going to be able to build the amount of housing that we need to have people occupied? No. Therefore, housing in an economic sense is what we call a scarce resource, scarce commodity. So where does that put housing values? Up. So people right now are so afraid as buyers to make these decisions. You as the realtor professional, your job.
This is the best part.
I'm telling you. People that make decisions even right now. Yes, they've missed a little bit of a gap up of 6.5% on average. But come on, let's use our common sense. Prices have nowhere to go but up over the long term. If people are trying to make decisions in a micro moment of time as buyers, your job is to educate them that that's not what they should be doing. Here's a great expression they use in stock investing all the time. It's not about timing the market, it's about time in the market. So if you're going to buy, a stock, there's these day traders, and they're the high risk kind of people. Those are the hunter guys, in and out. You're in for the long term. Does it matter that I bought my share today at $10 and went down to $9? But 10 years from now, it's going to be at 12, and I'll have received dividends over the last 10 years, right? That's where you want to be. You want to be long-term vision. Housing's no different. If you're looking in a micro moment of time as a buyer, like I buy today and the market does go down 5%, it's not the end of the world. Because if I'm holding that property for 10 years or 20 years, the magic of the compounding growth of that property eliminates the 5%. And I don't know anybody, and I know a lot of smart anybodies that know how to invest in real estate that can predict the bottom of the market. That person doesn't exist. The ones that say they are, they got lucky. In Canada, if you go back over 100 years and look at the data of price appreciation in real estate, does anybody know roughly what housing appreciates every year? And this contemplates downturns, upturns and stuff. Does anybody know?
3 to 5%.
6.5?
It's about 5. Chris likes to go a little higher. Chris is very conservative. I'm even more conservative than him. I always use 5%. Is the annualized return on real estate. Are you telling your buyers that? Showing your buyers that? Teaching, educating your buyers that? So let's say over 10 years, what's the return on the value of that property over 10 years at 5%? That's right. Use easy math with people. Over 10 years. It's got up 50%. There's some magic that happened though in 10 years. You had this thing called a mortgage probably on the property, right? You're making monthly payments on that mortgage. Or maybe you're making weekly payments. You did an accelerated payment system. And you're paying down, P stands for principal, I stands for interest. So we're educating your buyer how this magic works. Oh, and by the way, let's just say, what was the purchase price? Did we buy the property at what, $1 million? $1 million. How much do we have to put down for that? Put down $200,000 in that scenario. That's your investment. That's your capital outlays, 20%. So you're actually leveraging the bank for $800,000 to buy that. If this sucker here grows by 5% over 10 years, right? It's 50%, and you bought $1 million property. How much is $1 million property now worth in 10 years? 1.5, right? We're all on the same page? You took $200,000 and made $500,000 on it. Base level. Base level. Now factor in how much principal you paid down. So when I was working with buyers, this is the kind of information that I was doing in my buyer presentations with them. Okay? To get them to understand the economics of it. Because this is the other side, the capability capacity side. Covered the fear, the FOMO. Now it's the economic side. I can't start with economics. Not in resale residential real estate. In commercial, start there. Commercial is all about dollars and numbers and spreadsheets and things like that. Not residential real estate. Would you all agree with that? Pretty much, yeah. Cover the emotional, then go the economic, and use this as your economic. So right now, I'd be on the phone with every potential buyer that I know in my database, showing them this type of math. Because this math, in the long run, will be a dream come true for them. Most people don't understand, though, how that works. Is this helpful? Okay. Any question? You had a question?
Yeah, I did that with someone, and then so they get back to me and told me that what about the interest rate that you're paying right now? So it's just basically you're paying a lot of money in interest, right? During these 10 years.
Sure.
But then, yeah.
But you made 500,000.
You took $200,000 and you grew that to $500,000 in capital gains free profit.
Yes.
And you're paying a little bit of interest rates. Cool. I started my real estate career in 1994, right? I told you that full time. Got my license in 1992. Anybody want to guess what the interest rates were when I first started in real estate?
17%.
Well, not that high, but pretty close.
91. That's
Oh,
Now, everybody's going to say, but Mike, the prices of the houses were way lower. So were the incomes. It's all relative, people. You think that today's different from 30 years ago or 20 years ago? You're absolutely wrong. Psychologists call it paralysis by analysis. Paralysis by analysis. We're afraid to make decisions because we're overanalyzing these things. You put yourself in your own straitjacket, and then you're surrounded with all these fear things. Why are you doing that? The magic key is to unlock what that fear is. And once you do, then you hit them with the logic side, the economic side, okay? I don't know about you, but if I could take $200,000 and double and a half my return in 10 years, and then if I sold that asset, and it's my principal residence, and I pay no tax on that, I don't know what better investment that could be. And by the way, like I said, it's not just $500,000 now, right? Because you paid 10 years worth of your mortgage principal down. Okay. This number here is probably more like $600-something thousand, maybe more. Depends on how accelerated your system is. I always do weekly payments for my mortgage. There's the other thing too with mortgages, right? Your amortization. What's the standard AM? 25 years. You know what I always go for? I choose 10 to 15. Compounding to your benefit. It works magic. I think it's Einstein that said it. The most powerful force in the universe is compound interest. Or at least that's attributed to Einstein. And he's the guy that knows about, nuclear fission and fusion and the nuclear bombs, right? In these scenarios, you got to work it out with the buyers so that they're completely aware and understanding the benefit of buying. Because most people are fixated, oh, the interest rate's too high. Oh, it's the winter time. Nobody buys in the winter. By the way, buyers, best time to buy, statistically, December, January, February, every year, without a shadow of a doubt, every year. But you still have, I still believe we have this window of opportunity with buyers to change their lives. You can't help them change their lives without showing them this and influencing them to these ideas, because they're granularly thinking interest rates too high. Prices are too high still. Forget about that. That's noise. I keep in the back of my office an example of my mortgage financing book. I did my mortgage financing course in 1993. So it's all different now. I had to do 3 courses, my core courses, and I had to do 3 electives. So my cores were done in 92 and my electives in 93. I did mortgage financing, real estate property law, and I did real estate appraisal. My real estate financing course, of course, computers were around, but we didn't use computers. They gave us these little books that had amortization schedules in them, okay? The highest interest rate in my book was 25%. And back in the early 80s, 81, 80, 81, it got up to over 20%. Some people paid interest rates of over 20%. In my book, though, the lowest number was 8%. That's the lowest number in my book that I was trained on 30 odd years ago. What does that tell you? That interest rates today at 5 or 6%, it wouldn't even have made it into the book that they taught us on 30 years ago, because nobody thought the interest rates would ever go that low.
It would never go.
And here's the question I asked in that class. Remember, I'm 22, 23 years old. I'm a little punk kid, right? In a course with all these adults, old people. I'm 54 in July. Back when I was 22, 23, that was ancient. That person's almost going to die. I put my hand up in the class and I said to the teacher, how come the book doesn't go down to like 7, 6, 5%? There was this enormous laughter in the room from all these people in the class that I was taking that with. And they all looked at me like I was an idiot. And then the teacher said, well, it'll never go that low. Ask your people here. Oh, no, it'll never go that low. 8%, are you kidding? That'll never happen. That'll never even happen. And here we are. 5-6% were complaining about it. Get real. Who cares?
Well, this is the lowest ever, right?
Well,
Even the COVID time, that was the
Correct,
lowest.
that's the
ever.
lowest ever.
So I will never go back to that.
If we ever went back to those ultra low interest rates, that's a structural global economic tsunami that we never want to be at. That's what that would indicate. I think we're going to settle in at a healthy interest rate of 4 or 5% to 6%, that range. Okay. And so now what product do the people use? That's why you have to be, as a realtor, in a good relationship with a good mortgage person, whether it's somebody at a lending institution or a mortgage broker. They're number one on your team along with the lawyer, but it's really the financing person that's on the team. Okay. Actually, before I even go into the next stuff, I'm way off. I'm gonna do this at the time. I'm an hour in already. Wow. You rather me do it this way than by textbook? Just do my stuff?
It's nice.
Okay. This is an actual presentation book that I used in real estate. So I did interviews, meetings with buyer clients, okay? And so I prepared, like I said last week, I McDonaldized my business. I knew I was gonna have to work with buyers. I knew I was gonna have to work with sellers. So rather than trying to reinvent the wheel, as Liam calls me today and wants to meet tonight, now I'm scrambling to put together a basic presentation because I didn't prepare. I had like 10 or 15 things of these printed out, ready to go. I pulled them off the shelf. 15 minutes later, it's all customized for Liam. Bob's your uncle. Perfect, right? And this is an example of what I show. Yeah, Matt will pull it up there, and Matt will send this actually to you, okay? So you're gonna have a copy of my stuff. And so I actually added today, this morning, I printed out the RICO information guide. This is mandatory for us to give to everybody. And so Matt's gonna, so it's keep it right there for that page. So this is the buyer meeting agenda. So when I was booking appointments, remember I taught you the term last week, CETO? What was CETO again? CETO. Come into the what? Office. If a buyer's not willing to come into my office and meet with me for a half an hour, an hour and a half, if I'm going to put them into a relationship management system or a CRM, would they be an A+, A, B, C, or a? They'd be a D. Because if they don't want to come in to learn about the most significant investment in their life, do I want to just go run out with them and show them properties? So you move on. Make sense? All right, so this was the actual agenda that I would go through with each one of my buyers. You're going to get a copy of this. Matt's going to send you this actual, he's actually scanned everything in this workbook, this presentation, and he'll send that to you today, right? All right, so yes, there's an agenda. We want to look professional. We want to show them that we're different than the 70-something thousand realtors that are out there. You're going to create something like this yourself, and you're going to complement it with, and this is just the basic version of the one that we print out for free at our design center. So you're going to have a 1-2 punch. You're going to have your own personalized brag book interview agenda system, and you're going to have the one that we provide to you for free in the design. So in case you're not aware, so long as you have the name of a buyer, you can go in for free, give it to our design people, yes?
Or an address.
Or an address for a listing, right? So for a listing, because on a buyer, we didn't have address, right? So it'd be for a buyer. For a listing, you would have, Matt and Mary at 123 ABC Street, and they'll do the seller version. This is the buyer version. All you need is the name. You'll get that. But this is a great book. Believe you me, I would be using it too, as a complement to my own unique material. So in this, you'll see, go back. Here's the agenda we're going to have. And what do you see as the number one thing on my agenda? The finance. I just finished,
Got it, you're done.
I just finished going through a whole bunch of finance stuff with you so that people can understand that. Now, when you do your interview, maybe you've reached out to your contact in the finance world and may have them be available to meet with your client or take a client's call, because tonight at 7, between 7 and 8, you're meeting with them on the CETA, right? Be like, Liam, I could show you how you could buy that house in the least amount of time for the least amount of money. Would you be interested in hearing more? Great. When would be a good time to meet? Would tonight at 7 or 8 or tomorrow at 5 and 6 work? Great. Tonight, 7 and 8? Perfect. I've got it booked. Call my mortgage person. I may be having somebody call you tonight between 7 and 8 o'clock. Are you available? Sure, no problem. If not, great. I'm going to refer your name and have them directly reach out, because we have to cover this one first, 100%. The capability, capacity for them to buy. And how I say that to them too would be, hey, look, what a disappointment this would be if we bought a house for $1 million and you could have afforded 1.5. You could have had the ravine lot and the 4 bedrooms and the 3 washrooms. Wouldn't it be a shame if we didn't know what you're actually capable of buying? So you use the psychological reverse, not the, yeah, you want to buy $1 million, we find out you can only afford 700,000. You don't want to do it that way. Okay, you want to do the other way, build it up. Make sense? Then we're talking about the various forms. And so various forms, actually, you're going to see a working with a buyers thing that I created and a handbook for buyers. But then you got the various form stuff. Actually, I'm just going back here. Agreement, purchase, and sale, right? Various forms, agency forms. This is your BRA, your buyer representation agreement, and the RICO guide. Okay. Those are the forms you got to cover off with them, okay? Explain to them the difference between RMLS and Realtor.ca. Some people think Realtor.ca is actually the MLS. It's not, because it doesn't have any of the broker information that we have privy to ourselves, right? Then what I would do in my presentation, and I'm taking time, I'm going through, asking questions, clarity for them. Is there something I've skipped, right? Or something that they would like to ask, getting them to be educated as best as they can. When I get down to this stuff, what I want to do is preempt what's going to happen eventually with them, which is to be doing an offer, right? Which is going to be a very scary time for them. Would you agree with that? Especially if they're a first-time buyer. So what I would do, and what I did, was I'd actually include in my presentation as a take back and take home with them a blank agreement purchase sale. This is the document that they're going to autograph or okay with an investment to own their dream home. Remember those fear words? We're going to change the fear words to the not so fear words. Better to give them the agreement now, because our agreements are 5-6 pages long, very small letter, right? People are afraid to sign something they haven't read. You give it to them in your first meeting. Go at a high level, explain to them, listen, can you scroll up? Do we have a copy of the actual agreement or no? Oh, probably don't. Okay, it's all right.
Well, we find it.
We have all the small legalese. We're going to fill in the blanks. Your name, we don't know what the address is going to be. We don't know what the seller's name. We don't know what the purchase price, the deposit. We're going to fill in the blanks with all this stuff. But I want you to have this document now. And why do I want to have this document now? Because this is where we're going to ultimately head to, getting you to okay, autograph this document. So take it home, read it. If you have any questions, reach out to me and I'll answer them. So you're building trust at the first meeting. No way?
Have to go down too far.
Okay, that's fine. So you're building the trust in right away. You're also going to share with them the different clauses and other forms that are going to be involved. So condition on financing, condition on building inspection. Why not talk about those right there at the first meeting, as opposed to the moment you're putting together an agreement purchase sale and trying to explain to them all these things? You're still going to do that at the offer, but it's going to be a lot easier for you to do that because you've already explained it in your first meeting with them. Make sense? The conditions, legal representation, choosing a lawyer. For anything like this, recommend how many people? Perfect. Recommend 3. Always good to have options for them. They may already have their own lawyer, which is fantastic. The lawyer, the finance person, and the building inspection are the team, right? You, finance, lawyer, building inspection. You, finance, lawyer, building inspector. That's your team. Communicate to them. That's your team. How many building inspectors are you going to refer? Three. How many lenders would you refer? Three. You're ever in trouble, it's always better to have those three options, because otherwise it could be looked at being maybe collusion by you, okay? Purchase cost, you're going to go through some of the costs, the CMHC fees if you're a high ratio mortgage, land transfer tax. If you're buying a property in Toronto versus one in Mississauga, what's the big difference in land transfer tax? In Toronto, it's double. So they have the provincial land transfer tax, which every municipality in Ontario pays. But in Toronto, they have what's called the MLTT, the municipal land transfer tax. So it's double. You literally go one street removed from us here in Mississauga into Toronto, and it could be the exact same kind of house, and you're paying double land transfer tax, you know? Want to scroll down a bit for me? So again, in the workbook, keep going. Yep. We're going to give this material. You're going to have a high level explain to them all this. You just scroll all the way down to it. Yeah.
So what though?
Just anything, just showing it.
Okay.
Yeah. You're going to get all that content. If you want to use it verbatim, it's up to you. If you want to modify it to your own, do that. What's missing from my book is what I called my CV, right? My curriculum vitae, right? So it's my resume. I actually would include that as well in your presentation. What have you done? What have you accomplished? Testimonials, if you have any, from clients. Does anybody use testimonials? Video testimonials are very powerful. Obviously, written ones good too, with phone numbers for people to call. But this is going to be your workbook in conjunction with something like this to present at the CETO come into office. Okay. Let's go to the workbook. Got 45 minutes to go through the workbook stuff, I think. Unless anybody's got any other questions. No? All right, system work with buyers. We are going to go back to page, that one where it's the buying process step by step. Is that it there?
This one here, the buyer process. Consultation, joint negotiations.
It's the one that's going to say, choose a sales representative you're comfortable with.
This one here.
Correct. Yeah. And then before we go with that too, can you pull up this little form too for me? I think Matt's going to give you this as well. Sorry, I made you jump around there a bit. This is a buyer client feedback form that I would use or used when I was selling. So this is going out looking at properties. And imagine too, back when I sold, you weren't showing 4 or 5 or 6 properties and selling a property. It was 30 to 50 to 60 back then. And so I would keep these as a tracking system for how much work I've been doing, but 2, as a way to protect myself. You had a question?
Yeah. So what was it like when you showed that many properties, says what's changed?
Well, showing that many property, I don't think it would change much today. I mean, maybe more traffic today, but we didn't have virtual tours like you have today. So you could see a lot of the property before you even see the property. And, going out and showing 30 to 50 properties because people were stuck in here, right? Back in those days, in the 90s, early 2000s, it was this, people were entrenched in this fear of buying something. But for me, when I was showing 20, 30, 40 properties, having this as a resource for me to refer back to was important because they start to blend in your mind, right? All these properties you're showing. And I also did it because, as you know, I love the regulatory side of the business. And I always think worst case scenario. In worst case scenario, I'm standing before, a judge, or I'm standing before RICO or Professional Standards Committee or arbitration. And what did you do, Mike? Well, here's my process. Here's the McDonaldization of my business. And here's what I did with each buyer. And so with each buyer, put the property address in, so I would fill that in before we went out. So we'd have, say I was showing 7 properties tonight, I'd have 7 of these filled in, and then the client would fill in the blanks for what they liked about the property they least liked. And then they would, on the scale of 1 to 10, they're going to rate the property based on price, condition, location, terms, bedrooms, baths, overall appeal. Great. They didn't want to buy it, goes into my book. And I'm then focusing on what did they say here? What did they say here to help narrow down the search, right? You're literally taking a brick of marble, chiseling it away to get the statue of David for the buyer. Now, it never happened to me in my career where I ever used this or needed to use this for a legal reason, but I've shared this actual form for the last 15 years with realtors, and it's been used twice in a court case by realtors of mine to their benefit to be able to show a history and what they were doing, because the buyer turned twice on our realtor and said our realtor didn't show them anything that they liked. He wasn't working hard for me, with all the things, nasty things they're going to say to blame the realtor. And our realtor pulls out like 15 of these pages. And, well, hang on a second. I showed you 15. You rated this, you rated that. It's basically fabrication, what you're saying here at that point, right? And it's good. Like it's a little kind of homework for them to do. Today, I'd probably have this done electronically in an app or something, right? The amount of technology to condense the time and effort you have to put into the business, because for me, we didn't have DocuSign. That's only a recent thing. So if I wanted a signature on an agreement, guess what I had to do? I either had to fax it, which then distorts the image, or I get in my car and go and drive to get a signature. So talk about, showing 30 to 50 properties, add in all those other little steps. It's crazy. Whereas today you can sit in your office, you can sit at home, email through DocuSign or DigiSign, things are done. Easy peasy, right? All right, we'll go back to the main sheet there. Buying process. Choose a sales representative you're comfortable with. Everything we've talked about today is going to help the decision to work with you, to be comfortable with you. Yeah, it should be the buying process step by step.
I don't think they have that handout in there.
Oh, they don't have that in the book? Oh, okay. This is where you're going to focus on your value proposition. We've talked a lot about how you increase your value. We talked about the economic, the emotional, fear, FOMO, capability, capacity, and explain to them the math. This is your value proposition. You are a highly educated, dangerous real estate machine out there, okay? Next slide. This is number 2, understand the financing. As you saw in my agenda, that was the number 1 item. That's the capability, capacity. Write those 2 words on under the words are capability, capacity. Do they have the capability to buy real estate? Do they have the capacity to carry the mortgage? Okay. There's a lot of fraud that's happening out there. And that's come home to roost because the market shifted and people are losing properties, or they're about to lose the property. Next one, Matt. It's time to go shopping. Keep an open mind. Don't be fooled by first impressions. Location, location, location. We've all heard that one, right? Location, location, location. I disagree with that. I call that one out. I don't think that's true. I grew up with that saying, though, as a kid, early in my career. But I realized that it's not that. It is 3 things. Thank you. Number 1, by a long shot, is price. Location is 2. Anybody know what number 3 is? Starts with C. Condition. These are your top 3 things why a house will sell. In the buyer's mind and the seller's mind. Price, location, and condition. What one of those is fixed and you have no ability to change? This one. I think that's why everybody's like, go location, 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 right? The other two we can. You can modify each one of those. You, as condition, you can have it improved. You can do some staging, you can do some painting, what have you, right? You can alter those. There's a number 4. It's down the list, but it's terms. Terms, right? What kind of terms do you have? Conditions do you have? Do you have a condition on sale of the purchaser's property for 60 days? Well, that's maybe not going to help in the mind of the seller, right? But this is all about you trying to figure out and navigate the fear that they have, the fear of the price. The price is too high. The interest rates are too high. It's the fear. How are you going to do that? Interest rates is on the number 4. If you're going out shopping too and showing properties, everybody's done that, right? I would hope that everybody's been out with buyers. I will let you in on a secret. The vast majority of the houses you're walking into, you're being recorded. I'll say that one more time. The vast majority of homes today that you're walking into the show, you are being recorded.
So,
Completely legal. It's their house. They have their own security. Absolutely legal. Nothing illegal about that. I share this with you because of a couple of things. One, be very mindful of the conversations you're going to have with your buyer in the house. So when you're doing your buyer presentation, you're talking about the process and we're going to looking at houses. When we go into the house, do not have any conversations about the house, what you'd be willing to pay for it, what you like, what you in the house, and even in the driveway, or definitely in the porch. We have these ring camera things sometimes, right? They're going to pick up on all your conversations. And what have you done? You've given away all your secrets with your buyer. So you're being recorded. Assume you're being recorded whenever you walk into the house. That also means that you want to be completely in attendance with your buyers. You do not want to let the buyers separate and go into different rooms. You have to manage the showing 100%. And if they're bringing kids with you, the kids have got to be with you as well. It's your liability. We get cases all the time where the kid grabs something, it's a young kid, it's a shiny thing on a table, puts it in his pocket. He's not a master criminal or anything. He just saw something shiny, put it in his pocket. Well, that's going to come back to haunt you as the realtor because you were not in control during the showing, okay? I have a couple of cases currently on the deck right now where it's stuff like that, okay? You bring them in, they're with you 24/7 through that showing, okay? I wrote a couple other things down. Fines for sending a buyer direct to a listing. Do not do that. If you get a confirmation to go show a property, you go show the property. You do not give them the lockbox keys or the code to the electronic lockbox to go. That's going to cost you probably $5,000 at Rico, okay? You go there in attendance because you're insured to be there to open the door, not the client. Do not be eating or drinking in the client's house, the homeowner. Again, you're being recorded. I've seen lots of great recordings of people sitting in the family room or living room of a homeowner drinking Tim Hortons and eating donuts and stuff with a realtor.
even coffee.
No. If you got coffee, leave it in your car, walk in, you're there to show, right? Those are fines. Do not go and check what they've got in their fridge. I know you're curious. Do they have ketchup, mustard, relish, the Terrifics? Do not do that. And definitely don't. And there's a case that happened. Drink from the milk that's in there. That cost the realtor $21,000 as a fine to take a swig of milk from a homeowner's fridge. If you see a little jar or a little cup that's got like loonies and toonies, don't go and take a loony and toonie. That cost the realtor $10,000. Do not allow a client to go use the back room, a backyard as a restroom, to go pee. Those are pending cases right now. I can't share with you what those outcomes are going to look like, but they are real legitimate cases. I'm joking and laughing with you, but I'm not. These are seriously real life situations that happen. I'm just trying to impress upon you, when you go into a homeowner's house with your buyer, it's a privilege for us to be doing that. Respect the space that's not owned by us or your buyer, okay? I've got other funny stories, but I'm not going to, I'm sure. Go to the next page, you're at. I think the peeing, drinking milk, and stealing the loonies and tunes is good enough, right? Yeah. But the other guy took a banana one time from he was in like a fruit bowl, grabbed a banana and started eating it, because you're being recorded. You had a question?
Are they allowed to go use the washroom?
So that's a very contentious kind of question. If they really have to go to the washroom, me today, knowing the consequences, I'd actually try to reach out to the seller's realtor to get permission. Because there's big fines that have been levied right now, okay, about that.
Just the tax.
Would it be okay if my client used the restroom?
Sometimes when you meet a client for the first time, you talk inside like, when you're showing something,
So
you shouldn't be talking inside.
nothing that would be private or confidential in regards to, giving away what you'd be offering for it, what your terms would be, your closing it, what you'd like to get the appliance, all that kind of stuff. Anything of that nature, I would be telling my client, do not have that conversation when we're in the house or in the front driveway, because the technology today with the Ring system, you can pick, this stuff's high definition. I get to see these when the complaints come in or the court cases, because it's all part of the evidence. It's like watching a movie. That's how good the quality of this stuff is now. It's not this grainy, gray, black and white stuff anymore. It's like, wow. You can see the guys, the guy's got like a sin on his cheek or something. That's how good it is. It's crazy, right? So yeah, do not have any of those conversations. Now, that begs the question, how do you show properties with buyers? Do you take the buyers with you in your car, or do you have them follow you? That's a choice you're going to make. Earlier in my career, I had them in my car. I would drive them around until two things happened. One, I got lost. I was way up north in the country, around like Loretto and Tottenham. I got lost up there in the country. And back then, that's really the country. And it was very embarrassing to get lost. Because I got in, so it's a long story. Okay, I'll give you the Coles notes. I met these people at Airport Road and 89th. And it was a donut store called Mike's Donuts, actually, it was called. It was a small little chain. They asked me if I could get out of my car and they would drive to where we were at. I would never do that today. I was a naive young kid. Just think of the safety. Like, I could have disappeared. I didn't have a cell phone back then. That didn't exist. I had a pager. I could have been, hacked up and buried in I don't know, right? Anyways, we got in the car. I made it to our first property. It was a 10-acre hobby farm. They were looking for these hobby farms. And so we found the first one, no problem. We came out of this long winding driveway. We had to go left and the person turned right. And I said, oh no, we got to go this way. Oh, don't worry, we'll loop around. The next street we'll loop around. Okay. Well, we looped around and I got lost. And we drove around for like 30 minutes until I found a tourist information booth of all things. And we went in there and I got resituated. We went on and I showed a property and I sold the property. So it had a happy end. But it was crazy to be lost in the country. The other one was, I just got my brand new BMW. It's like 1996 or 97. So this is a big status thing for his 26, 27-year-old realtor. It still had the brand new, fresh smell from the dealership, It's toxic fumes you're smelling, by the way. It's not anything good for you. And I was showing two doctors, psychologists, properties in Lorne Park. And one of them was divorced, and they brought their little daughter with them, like 10-year-old or 8-year-old daughter. And the daughter got hungry, and they wanted to go eat. And I was like, okay. And we showed 4 or 5, and I had 4 or 5 more to go. So we pulled into the McDonald's and let's go in. Oh no, can we just do takeout and can we eat in your car? And I'm like, oh, that's not a good, that's not gonna end well, right? And so we do. The kid gets a Big Mac and there, she's in the back seat. And when she bit into the Big Mac, the whole thing exploded into my car. I was not happy. Should I tell them the rest of the story? You know the rest of the story.
Go ahead.
Should I?
Go
It's too late, yeah, you
Come
might be
on.
having a day.
You can't dangle that and then go, no.
But that's funny enough though, right? This is where it gets really crazy, where I never had a client in a car ever again. So I was so angry. It's a brand new car, but I don't project anger, right? It's all, so out of my mouth comes these words. I don't know how they came out, don't know why, to this day, it mystifies me because I would never do it again. I said to this kid, I said, so, how's your dad? I don't like that. How's your dad doing? Right? And then this kid had this like shocked look on her face, and then the mom like, so let me back it up. The two doctors, they were lesbians. Wasn't a guy and girl. I don't care, I don't judge at all. To each his own. This kid looked at me, the mom of the kid looked at me, and I'm like, now I know I'm getting a story here. I'm gonna get smacked over the head on something. The kid's like, oh, I don't have a dad. Oh, my heart went into my stomach now. I'm like, oh geez, the dad died. What's going on? She says to me, she's 8, 9, 10, something like that, right? She goes, I was conceived in the test tube. Sitting there, God, get me out of this car. Get out of my, I just want to die. And this kid proceeded to explain to me the whole story of how that works. I didn't need it, but I got it. Anyways, it all worked out good. They bought a house in Lorne Park. We're friends to this day. But I was like, I'm never putting people in my car again, ever. So I had people follow me. Okay, so we started the story about having conversations about the property. If you are going to have them in your car, have them wait till you get back into your car to talk about the property, any specifics that can be confidential. If they're following with you, you're going to want to do a debrief after your showings with them for all the properties. That's why I have the sheet that they have them filled out, right? Like what they like, what they don't like, with all the top 10 things. Okay, that was why Mike Hanley decided never ever to have people in their car again. So there you go. That's a funny story, right? Stupid. I made mistakes. Where are we? Number 4, make an offer. Ever seen the movie The Godfather? You seen The Godfather? Maybe you haven't, but maybe you'll recognize this line. I gave him an offer I couldn't. He couldn't. I gave him an offer he gave it away. Refuse.
Didn't say
You said.
You
Give them an offer they can't refuse. He can't refuse, Matt. Refuse, Matt. Meaning, you have to make it so tempting to that seller that they don't want to touch the paper, they want to accept it, okay? So that's when you're making an offer you can't refuse. The other one I would say to you is make an offer, and this is from the point of view of the buyer, right? So your offer to sellers when the seller can't refuse. And number 2, an offer that you as the buyer have no regrets about. Write those 2 words down, no regrets. And what does that mean? Well, Matt, we're going to offer them an offer that he can't refuse. And I want you to have no regrets about this, so that when you wake up tomorrow morning, Matt, you have no regrets, whether you won it or you lost it. That's a dialogue, by the way. Okay, Matt, let's put an offer in that the seller can't refuse, and one that you'll have no regrets about, so that when you wake up tomorrow, if we've won or lost, you're okay. That's a very powerful dialogue, by the way, when you're in multiple offers. There can't, have no regrets. Dialogue, okay? Next page, Matt. Should be number 5, right?
This make an offer had 2 pages, so I just go right to the next.
Yeah. Okay, satisfy the conditions. I'm gonna put two words up here for you, or three. Time, actually four, is, actually five. Time is of the, what's the most important word in contracts that we have to be mindful of? Essence? Liam was whispering it. He knew the answer, but he said, essence. I love it. Time is of the essence. It's the most important words you have to understand when it comes to the agreement of purchase and sale. Let's see if I can find the agreement of purchase and sale here for a second. Where is the APS? So if you look at the APS, right? Agreement of purchase and sale, and you refer to clause 20. Clause 20 in the agreement of purchase and sale is probably one of the most important clauses in that agreement, and nobody even knows it's there. That's the time limits, which is time is of the essence. So if I submit an offer on behalf of our buyer and the irrevocable is 9 p.m. tonight, right? What does irrevocable mean, by the way?
Your offer is,
What does that mean?
So you can take it back.
You can't take
You
it
can't,
back.
like, can't take it
Right.
back before that.
What was your answer? Same thing?
but your offer is ends.
So, yeah,
Yeah, exactly. Like it dies at 9:01. Yeah. So it's irrevocable till 9 p.m. So I'm working with Matt. He's my buyer. I send the offer over to Liam. He's the listing agent's, the seller's listing agent. And you sit down, you agree to all that, and your seller signs the agreement, right? At 8:55. What was our irrevocable again? Right. Seller signs at 8:55. Okay. Liam's so excited. Yippee, I sold the house. Let's break out the wine and beer. Let's cheer. Let's have some fun. And then Liam sends the offer back, and I, representing Matt as the buyer's agent, I get that at 9:10. Is there a deal? Did a deal just happen there? His client sold it, signed it at 8:55. Liam's so excited, they had a couple beers. He chugs beers, by the way, is what I heard. Funnel, shotgun. And he gets it back to me at 9:10. Do I have a valid deal? Who says no? Who says yes? Who doesn't want to answer? There's no deal.
Why?
Because I have to be in receipt of that before 9 p.m. Yes, his seller signed at 8:55 p.m. inside the irrevocable. Sad thing is that they started drinking and he sent it back to me 10 minutes after my irrevocable. I have to be in receipt of that within my irrevocable period. It's not when he signs it, it's when I get it back. Very important distinction, okay? Yeah, you had a question?
What if he changed their workload time later on? Is that,
Great, then that's his offer as a seller back to me. I can choose to accept that or not.
okay.
The moment that you change a comma or a word, that's now your offer back to me as the seller to the buyer. Okay.
But I know in the practice, it's not work like this.
Pardon me?
But I know in the practice, it's not work like this. I know cases when it was sent after your work full time and it's not.
So it's not a valid agreement versus sale then.
But
it's not-
people sell it and buy it.
It is, if you are receiving an offer back that's outside of the irrevocable period, they've conveyed it back outside of that, that's not an agreed upon, that's not a valid contract to you. So in this scenario I just gave you, the seller now has a claim against their own realtor for not being competent. Instead of drinking, he should have been sending it back to me so that I receive it at 8:56 because you signed it at 8:55 or 8:57 or whatever the case may be, right? If he chose to delay and then send, he sent it outside of the time limit, he's gonna have to get it back. There's no deal.
Even if I work is this,
Sorry, I can't speak up.
Even if you work with lease, rent,
Yeah.
something, yeah, the same situation.
Clause 20 is in the lease forms as well. Time is of the essence. It's so critical. I'll give you an example now from the, do we have what happens when you don't deliver a deposit? Did I give you that?
Yeah.
Okay, can I give you that? I have 20 minutes to go. All right.
Can I get you to clear that real quick?
Sure can. I'd rather give you guys real life stuff too, right, to work you through. This is,
I have a couple deals in my practice when.
This one, right?
yeah. This happens on a weekly basis in our brokerage, multiple times a week. Can I write still this one?
Yep. Again, hey, you're coming right there.
Can you send them this document?
It's probably there, but I'll double check to make sure they have it.
I created this document based upon this lawyer right here's legal experience. He's a litigation lawyer in real estate here in Ontario, does a lot of litigation. So if you're ever in looking for one, he's one of the options you can look for. He's out of Burlington, Hamilton area. As I said, I experience this once or twice a week as the manager, right? Both sides. So we put into the agreement of purchase sale our deposits, right? Everybody's done a deal, right? Everybody's done either a rental or, okay, great. Sometimes people sneak in my class and they haven't done a rental. So if you look at page 1 of your agreement of purchase and sale, you have purchase price and deposit. What are the 3 ways you can provide a deposit to the seller as a buyer? There's 3 options.
Herewith,
Yes, yeah.
Herewith, upon acceptance, and
Special terms, I don't know, 1, 2 days.
And what?
Special terms,
as otherwise described.
yes.
So those are your 3 options. Herewith, upon acceptance, as otherwise described. In the offer systems like web forms and whatnot, it defaults to one of the 3. Which one does it default to? Upon acceptance, okay? Upon acceptance. Where do I use those words in here at all? Upon acceptance. That's what you're going to have as your default. What does upon acceptance mean legally in the agreement of purchase and sale?
24 hours from the sign.
Putting that very bold, 24 hours after it's accepted, has to be deposited. Now, what happens if it's Christmas Day that you did the agreement? And it doesn't matter. You must listen to some stuff I talk about. Have you listened to me talk about this before?
No, I just don't read the stuff.
Somebody's told you. And they've heard it from me because I deal with this stuff at the company every week. Upon acceptance means 24 hours. Doesn't contemplate statutory holidays. Doesn't contemplate that there was a total eclipse last month and that somehow, gave you a day's grace. Upon acceptance means 24 hours is 24 hours. So if on Christmas Day I did a deal, if I did a deal on Christmas Eve, I have to have in to the listing brokerage the deposit check on Christmas Day. So if we accepted it at 7 p.m. on Christmas Eve, a deposit check has to be received by 6:59 p.m. on Christmas Day. I give those examples because in my career, I sold 3 houses on Christmas Eve in my career. It does happen, okay? If you do not deliver the deposit when you're upon acceptance within the 24 hours, what happens? The deal becomes breached. It's a breach transaction. So many realtors with their buyers think if they don't deliver the deposit check, that the deal's actually dead. The difference between breach and a dead deal. It's not dead. The seller has a recourse and remedies to do what they want.
options.
They have options. I've created this document. I give this out to every realtor that goes through this situation. And I give it to anybody that comes into the summer program as well to help navigate this problem. Because here's the reality. If you're on the buying side and you're telling your buyer, oh, don't worry, we don't have to bring the deposit, the deal will be dead anyways. you're going to be part of the problem of the lawsuit coming forward, where the seller, if they choose to sue, will include you as part of the persons they're suing. So here's what I say all the time for your offers and deposits. Do the as otherwise described option. Do not do upon acceptance. Herewith, we all know what that means, right?
Yeah.
Herewith, I'm coming to the offer tonight. Matt, here's my offer, and there's my deposit. He has it. And if he signs it back to me, right? So if he doesn't accept it, the offer comes back to me, and so does the check. We send another one back, and he sends it back. The check always stays with the offer on herewith. Everybody clear on that? Very rare to see herewith. In my opinion, herewith is the most powerful form of putting a deposit together. Deposit's meant to be showing negotiations of good faith, right? They taught you that in school. They said to me 30 years ago. You're negotiating good faith. What better good faith than if I send it over to Matt and he accepts it right now, he's not waiting for a check. Have any of you sat around waiting for a check to be delivered from a buyer's agent before? Yeah. Nerve-wracking sometimes, right? Because if they don't, there's all kinds of potential consequences to that. We don't want to be there. So I always say do as otherwise described. There's some banking institutions today that exist out there that you can't get your money within 24 hours. Does anybody have an experience with that? You know, like a cooperators type of situation bank or others, or I think Orange is one of the banks. It takes more than 24 hours. So if you know that, don't go upon acceptance because you're going to put your buyer in breach. Or maybe they need to sell off some of their RSPs to get their down payment. That's going to take 48 hours to do. That's part of your finding out about your buyer's financing so that when you put the offer in, you don't risk the situation by the fact that they can't bring the deposit. You have a question?
Yeah, I have a question. So when you are giving an offer with upon acceptance and the other one, what you're saying, well, by the listing agent point of view, it will take, if there's another offer with our offer, they will rather take the upon acceptance offer, correct? No?
Well, there's still, the risk is still the same. Is the buyer going to show up with the check? Is the buyer going to show up with a check in 24 hours, or maybe you've given, 2 days or 3 days, and you're telling them why you're putting that in there because my client's money is in a bank account where they can't get it. You're being transparent and honest. Look, I don't want to put upon acceptance here, and it doesn't happen because I know my client's banking institution can't get the funds available that quickly. I want you to be aware of that. If I'm the listing agent and you're telling me that, we're building trust between each other. Okay? Just because you put upon acceptance doesn't mean it's coming in. Right? Any questions on that? This is a great document. It gives you court cases too, right? In our system of law, everything is done by precedent setting cases. And so from a seller's perspective, if you do not bring that deposit in for the seller, you breach. The seller can do nothing, right? The seller can say, okay, I accept your breach. Just get me the check as soon as you can. So they'll give you the remedy, right? The other option, they can say, no, I'm treating this as a breach. I'm going to hold you to account for any damages. The deposit, by the way, is not used as a damage in our system. This is an error or fallacy that people have. Let's say it's a $30,000 deposit. And then the seller goes and resells the property for $50,000 less than what the first buyer bought it for, right? $50,000. So that's a damage, right? $50,000 less. The $30,000 deposit gets added to the 50. It doesn't get subtracted from the 50. You all clear about that? The deposit is right away considered to be what they call liquidated damages. And then you look at what damages are. So you sold for $50,000 less. I had to pay extra carrying cost on my mortgage. I had to pay for movers that didn't have to move. I had to pay for extra land transfer, property taxes, utilities. All these things get aggregated in the column of damages from the seller's perspective. And in there is the deposit, just so that you're clear. too many people think this is like a walk away option for them. If I'm not gonna give a deposit. And they walk away, and what they're gambling on is the seller not actually going and taking them to court and suing them. Which I will be honest, it's a very low percentage of sellers that do that. Right, so if you want to gamble, go ahead. But the one of the 100 sellers that do say, yeah, I'm going after them, you don't want to be the realtor that's in that situation, especially on the buy side. It's a nightmare. Get a question.
So you said that $30,000 deposit is liquid damages. It's
Yeah.
instantly.
That's right. That goes right on the ledger before the seller starts doing anything. Right? So that's already considered to be a hard loss damage.
But then it's, like in a court case, it wouldn't subtract out the expenses.
That's what I'm saying. That's correct.
Okay, got
Yeah,
it.
yeah. So just to be clear again, the deposit is 30,000. Okay. That is an immediate damage that would be awarded if the seller pursued legal means, if they proceed with legal means, if, okay? And somewhere in here it will say liquidated damages. Can you go to the page 2 maybe? It's in one of these sections. I'm trying, it's in there. It's a liquid damage.
So you don't have to justify that 30,000 with an
Correct.
expense report or anything. It's just here you've reached
That's right.
$30,000 sellers.
Yeah, it's in your APS, whatever that number is. And then, so your purchase price was 1 million for the first buyer. And then it was 950 for buyer. So that's 1, that's 2. So there's $50,000 there, okay? Now you're 80. Now you're gonna have legals, property tax. You're gonna have moving expenses maybe, utilities. The list can go on and on and on, right? This is what the lawyer's gonna work on the litigation side to document those things, right? So you've got 30, 50, and maybe let's say it's 10,000. Right? 30, 50, 80, 90. So you're suing for $90,000. Now, if you ever want to have fun, if you want to have fun and look at some court cases, go to this website here. CanLi, C-A-N-L-I, C-A-N-L-I. It's all the court cases in Canada that get published there. And you can search that by real estate cases, believe it or not. And there's some real cool cases you could read about mess ups in organized real estate.
I don't understand how they can use the.
I can't hear you. You have,
Sorry, I little bit can understand how the seller can sue the buyer for the land transfer tax, utilities.
no land
something.
transfer,
Or
property
property
tax.
taxes, utilities, something else, if it's just one day.
Time is of the essence, clause number 20. That's how they can do it. And they do it. If you go to CanLi, you'll read all of the cases of where buyers didn't deliver deposits.
If something happens, I don't know, like,
They died.
they died,
And then they died.
Someone dies in the family and they can't buy the property right now.
They committed to it.
Yeah, the thing is, this scenario happened to me.
It happened to you.
And I can tell you, like in my situation, I had a bridge finance.
Yep.
So we had a lot of issues that we had to deal with our end.
Yep.
And if they don't commit to it,
You got it.
we have issues too.
So this is a copy of an agreement for sale. We've all dealt with one, right? Can anybody tell me what these things are?
Under seal.
Under seal,
What does that mean?
sign it by witnesses or
Nope.
sign it but by electronic signature?
These are binding.
It's binding.
By-
So back in the old days, you know how they used to sign contracts? I don't have a knife. I cut myself. I'm gonna bleed. I take my little feather pen. Sign in blood. This is what a seal is basically. Back in the old days, people actually did that. Signed under seal, they signed under blood. Does anybody know what the definition of mortgage means, the root word of mortgage? Because when you buy something, you're getting a mortgage typically on it. Does anybody know what the actual root word of that is? No, you can't Google. You guys are cheaters.
I remember this in Harvard College courses. Yes.
Somebody just said it. Death.
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
Mort. It's a French word for death. Serious business. When you are, this is what I gotta impress upon you. When you are doing these types of contracts, these are serious contracts. It doesn't matter that somebody died in your family. It's sad. I get it. Like, we're not, you know, heartless here, but if you have a seller that says, I don't care, somebody died. You agreed under seal to adhere to the terms, and one of your terms was upon acceptance, and you didn't do it. And I'm gonna hold you to account. It's rare, very rare. But I do talk about it because it does happen. It's less than 1% of the time where a seller in this situation will go after the buyer in a case like that. But they do. I've experienced it, not personally, but as the man, as a broker, right? Be very careful. Do not be putting in a deposit unless you know your buyer can get it in 24 hours. Do the as otherwise described. Bring it in 72 hours.
I have in my practice when I first deposit, and the next day it was a lease, but it was on the next day, and it's legally technically was after time what was
Yeah.
accepted.
And what did the landlord and listing brokerage do?
Just accepted and
And they can do that.
lease.
So if you read this document, their remedy was they'll accept your breach and they'll go forward, which, by the way, you know, I scared you, but let's unscare you for a second. The vast majority are like, yeah, bring it in when you can, okay? But if you get that seller that knows what they're doing, particularly if they're lawyers on the other end that are sellers and they know our contracts, yeah, you got a problem, okay? Next page, Matt, where are we? I think we're done.
That was the end of that one.
I think we're done. No, I'm done.
5 minutes to spare.
Really? Yeah. Okay, there you go.
You got a 5-minute story? Come on.
5-minute story. Yeah, I got a couple
Yes.
stories. I got a funny story for a buyer showing, not mine, but it happened early in my career. One of the realtors I knew, he had just bought a brand new Cadillac, STS, I think it was called, like a 94, 95. It was a very cool looking Cadillac back then. In fact, they had a really cool video where this Cadillac would drive through, kids playing road hockey. And I don't know if anybody played road hockey in their life, but you'd say car, you have to move the dad and let the car go by. And that's the video. Anyways, this guy bought a new car, and he was showing properties to his client that had asthma, and he had inhalers, you know, because he was having asthma attack. And this realtor showed this guy multiple properties out in the country around Erin. Everybody know where Erin is? Yeah. Now Erin's getting closer and closer to the city because we're building out there. Back 30 years ago, I mean, that was like the country, like the boonies, okay? So this guy shows the property, multiple properties, multiple times. And he's out now showing this property in a few acres. And they go into the property, and the buyer has a massive asthma attack. My puffer's in your car. Can I have your keys? The realtor hands over his keys. He stole the car. Bye bye car. It was found later ditched in a pond. So that's not a good situation to have, but it happened. Yeah. So that didn't happen to me. You want me to tell you one that happened to me? Lots of good things happened to me. I got 2 stories for me. So I was showing up in the proper country, which again, today is not really considered a country, but it was north of Bolton. And I think it was called Cedar Valley Heights was the name of the community, like 2-acre, 3-acre properties up there, very nice exclusive estate subdivision, still exists today. And in the property remarks to the brokers, it said, 2 cats, please do not let them out. So there is, a 3-acre property I'm going to show. And, back then we had the lock boxes, like the dial ones for the letters, A, you do 2 to the right, 1 to the left, 2 to the right. And so I had told my clients, listen, there's cats here, just let me take care of it all. I'm gonna get down, make sure everything's, cool. These can't let them out. And so I opened the door and there's the 2 cats. They're like right there, right in front of me in the chairs. Like that, the V. And I'm like, oh, hey guys, how you doing? I love cats, I love dogs. I got both cats and dogs. And I'm thinking, I got them all calm. And I said to my clients, I turn like this, I come on in. As I come back, one's going over my shoulder and the other one through my legs, out the door. I couldn't get them back in for over an hour and a half. I had to cancel all the other showings I had. I finally coaxed them into the house. And that was a fun, look back kind of story. They didn't buy that house, but I kind of laugh at that. I've been in properties where, so here's a, what do they call, pro tip. When you go to show a property, ring the doorbell. Maybe the doorbell doesn't work. If it does, you've heard it. And then follow it up. Knock, 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 right? Nobody comes down. Give yourself 30 seconds, 45 seconds. Open the lockbox. Walk in. Shout, hi, it's Mike Kennelly from Royal LePage here to show your property. Sounds like overkill, right? I started doing that the day that I showed a property and went upstairs to the master bathroom and somebody walked out of the bathroom completely in their birthday suit. And my clients were elderly people. Yeah. Well, I had another one too. Now they're coming all back to me. So that was awkward.
We have 30 seconds.
The other one was, I was showing a property, young guy, he's just a crazy guy. We walk into the master bedroom, and as I walk in the door, see, that's the bed, right? The bed's right by the door. I look, I'm like, holy cow, the guy's sleeping there. But he had a pillow over his head, but you could see the body, like the shape of the body. And I'm like, I hope he's not dead. I think he's sleeping. And my client came in behind me, and as I was going to turn to say, there's a guy here, my client jumped on the bed. What the hell? That guy came up like a mummy. That was fun. All right, I'm done. Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
We'll see you guys next week, okay?